Hey guys, it's Logan from the Kodokan here. This video tutorial will be an introduction to striking fundamentals. We'll begin with the stance. During the free form phase of combat, meaning that neither you nor your opponents are in physical contact with one another, you're free to move around the fighting area as you please. So it's important to have a mobile fighting stance. With my feet a shoulder width apart, I'm going to slide my right foot back about a shoulder width or more, depending on my body type and my fighting style. The weight distribution should be an even 50-50% on either leg. The majority of my weight should be on the front half of my feet, especially on the balls of my feet. So in other words, I want to stay on my toes. If I place my weight on my heels, I would be off balance, immobilized, and easily knocked backwards. My knees are always bent. They need to be like springs. I can't have my legs locked straight like this. You wouldn't walk with your legs straight. You're immobile. You're only mobilized if your legs are already bent, so make sure that your legs stay bent through the entirety of the fight. Basically, a good stance is an athletic one. It's staggered, it's balanced, it's mobile, and it's constantly moving. It's never static, so it's ready to shift in any direction as need be. And that brings us on to footwork and movement. When I step forward, I step with my forward leg. When I step backward, I step with my backward leg. You always step first with the leg that's closest to the direction you're moving in. When I step to my left, I step with my left leg. When I step to my right, I step with my right leg. The secondary leg always just follows up. So if I step forward with my left leg 6 inches, my right leg will recuperate that 6 inches to make the difference, and I will end up back in my 50-50 weight distributed stance. And of course, the random nature of a fight dictates that I can't always move the same way. Every step's going to be different. But if I leap forward or leap backward, I'm still going to land in my same fundamental stance. My stance is a platform for me to attack, defend, and move from. So I have to make it a fairly consistent base of operations. So, whether I'm shuffling, leaping, or sidestepping, this is the basic footwork to use in the free form phase of combat. And you might also notice one more basic step I'm using when I'm changing angles. I'm pivoting off my lead foot. All I'm doing is rotating to face a different direction. This will be done if my opponent circles around me. I pivot off that foot, continue to face him. Let's talk about the arm positioning. My fists are raised, my elbows are in tight close to my body, they need to protect my torso. My fists are high enough to be able to at least block my jaw. I'm not tensing my fists, my forearms are vertical, my left arm is slightly leading. You'll notice my shoulder is slightly shrugged, but not so much that I'm tense. I need to remain loose. Next, I want to examine an often overlooked aspect of technique, and that is the correct formation of a fist. Curl all 4 fingers as tightly as possible, and then wrap your thumb over the small knuckles of the middle and index finger. You strike with the large knuckles of the middle and index finger. And you'll also notice that no matter how I wrap my fingers, I don't ever hold my fist tightly. I only tighten the fist at the moment of impact with the target. My wrist is straight, lined up with my metacarpal bones and knuckles in a straight line so that my fist becomes a weapon. Targets in the opponent's face can include the nose, the philtrum, the mouth, or pretty much anywhere along the jawline, especially the chin. Even the eye sockets and cheekbones can be struck, but if you were to basically draw an anchor around your opponent's face, that would be the primary targeting area. Anywhere above the brow line is too hard to be struck with a fist. You can hit it with an elbow or a kick, but avoid punching above the eyebrow. Now let's look at our first basic strike, the jab. The jab is a straight punch with the leading fist, in this case, our left fist. The jab is fast and strikes out directly towards the target and returns in the exact same manner. You'll notice that I rotate my fists so I go palm down towards the end of the punch especially. This is so that I can easily strike with my first 2 large knuckles as we talked about before. And it also helps to roll my shoulder up and protect my face
so I'm not exposed when I fire that punch directly out. You'll notice that the punch comes straight out the center line, and I don't flare my elbow. My elbow stays down so that it's not telegraphed. Telegraphing a punch means allowing the opponent to see it, and I definitely don't want that. Now watch. My posture stays upright as I throw the jab. I try to avoid leaning, although I can lunge forward or step forward with the punch. The jab is an excellent way to gauge the distance, set up a rhythm, and try and determine how your opponent reacts to your strikes.
Now, because the jab is fast, direct, a long-reaching punch, and because your leading fist is closest to the target, it will not put you at a bad defensive position. It will not open up your defense for a long period of time, and therefore, you can never do too many jabs. Now let's look at the second punch, which is called the cross. The cross is just like the jab in that it fires straight out like a piston, and I keep my elbow down. My fist rolls over, going palm down, just like I did with the jab, and my shoulder is still coming up to protect my face while the punch is out. When one fist fires out, the opposite fist will retract to cover my face. So as my right cross flies out here, my left hand is pulling back to cover. Here you can see why I'm able to generate so much power with my right cross. I'm turning my rear foot, pushing off the ground, and developing a kinetic link through my knee, hip, upper body, and shoulder. My body needs to stay upright for this. I don't want to lean forward, that'll throw me off balance. I also don't want to lock my rear knee into a sort of a lunge position. I want to stay loose and just pivot that back foot. Again, this is called kinetic linking, and basically what I'm doing is taking force from the ground, channeling it through my body and out my knuckles. Now it's very important your head never passes over top of your knee. If your head goes over top of your knee, you're off balance. That's way too far. Remain upright and centered. If you have to move forward, if you're too far away, step forward to cover the distance. Okay, now for the third and final strike, the lead hook. I'm going to tilt slightly to my left, okay? Turn slightly to my lead side. I don't want to lean too much. Again, I'll be off balance. I just slightly tilt to my left and turn to preload. My left hand is then going to hook around, striking the side of the opponent's face. It's coming around his guard. And I'm landing right on the side of the chin or jaw, sometimes temple. Notice how my wrist, knuckles, elbow are all lined up. My forearm is parallel to the ground. And the force is that such I'm pulling my shoulder first, and through elastic tension, my fist is coming in behind. I'm not throwing my fist out in front of my chest trying to use my chest muscles like that. That's just my arm punch. I want to use my whole body. So I'm shifting my weight slightly to the right as I whip my shoulder first, and the punch follows my shoulder. Now you're going to watch as I do a little faster. I'm shifting slightly to my left. Also notice that my left leg can pivot like that. My lead leg can pivot to help me deliver force, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It depends on my style, and it depends on the context of the situation. I don't want to take a low kick to that leg. So if I know I'm up against a guy who's going to throw a lot of hard low kicks, I might not pivot that so much. A fast little hook sometimes is all you need to put an opponent down. Placement is everything. We want to hit him right on the chin, but we can't hit him from too far away. The hook is usually a slightly closer reach. I don't want to paw him. I don't want to hit him with the wrong knuckles, right? I want to hit him with the correct knuckles. Therefore, as a rule of thumb, my elbow should be bent at 90 degrees, and I create this box shape with my arm. That's a perfect hook position. If it's any tighter than that, I might as well just hit him with my elbow, right? If it's longer than that, I'm starting to lack force, and I might end up pawing him with my foreknuckles. Now, with gloves on, that might not be too bad, and heck, you might even be able to pull off a punch with your foreknuckles. But basically, I like to punch with my palm down and my elbow locked at a tight, sharp 90 degrees so that I know I'm lining up my punch properly. Here's some common mistakes that people make.
they flare the elbow out on any of these punches, whether it be the jab or the cross. The elbow flares first, and they sort of end up punching in a downwards fashion. Okay, they might feel stronger, but you can see the elbow coming a mile away. What's worse yet is when they throw this looping haymaker type punch. If you've ever seen a street fight, you've probably seen someone throw a punch like this. We're not throwing a baseball, we're throwing a punch. So we cannot punch with a pawing motion. That's a common mistake. And anybody who has any understanding of body mechanics knows that in order for us to generate force in a pushing manner, our elbows need to be tight to our body. The exception to this rule is when we throw that lead hook. We don't want our elbow down. We want it up behind the punch, okay? If our elbow's down, then we'll be pawing. Think of your knuckles, wrist, and elbow as one solid unit, like a rocket, okay? Your elbow might bend, but from your knuckles to elbow is a straight line. Now look here. I'm using my cross to set up my hook. This is a combination. My cross comes out with laser straightness and my hook wraps around. In both punches, my elbow and my fist are in a straight line, even though I bend my elbow on the hook. So let's learn our first basic combination, which we call the two. This is called the two because there's two punches in it, a jab and a cross. The jab comes first, and in most combinations, the jab leads. This is because, as we said before, it's faster and it's closest to the target, and it does not put us in a bad defensive position. Now, whether or not the jab lands on its intended target, we're still using it to cover the distance, set our opponent up, and land the more powerful cross. Now I'm demonstrating a line drill that you can easily practice at home. I step forward with my combination two. When I step with my left, I jab with my left, and when I follow that right step up, I cross with my right. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. That's the rhythm we want to get. Stepping and punching simultaneously. Now you're going to see how after my cross, I can follow up into a hook. When I've thrown my cross, I'm basically already preloaded for the lead hook. I'm leaning my weight slightly to my left. As we throw powerful punches, our body will slightly turn in one direction or the other. When I throw my right cross, I'm turned slightly to my left. When I throw my left hook, I'm turned slightly to my right, and it sets up that next power punch. This is how we can chain our punches together in combination, by swaying the energy of our body back and forth. And this brings us on to our third and final combination, the three. We start with the jab, then the cross, finish with the hook. Jab, cross, hook. Just like that. This is a 3-hit combination, ideally building up in power. The jab, cross have the opponent confused, maybe bewildered, and finally when he's either blocking or trying to parry the center strikes, we're going to loop around from the side and hit him with that hook. Listen to how I'm breathing. A simple, easy, and effective way to learn how to breathe with proper rhythm during a fight is to shush your opponent. Basically, push a short burst of air through your teeth the moment you strike. Not enough so that you're out of breath, but just enough that you can express energy in that second and tighten up your abdominal muscles. It sounds like you're telling your opponent to be quiet. Finally, you'll see me put some different combinations together. There's a 2, there's a double jab, a 2 again, and this time a 3. I fire another 2, and I'm slightly changing angles as I do this. Cross hook this time, a 2 again, a double jab cross, that's called a 1-2 by the way, and then a 3. Shadow boxing is when you imagine an opponent in front of you and practice your techniques against them. It's a great exercise to practice at home or when you don't have a partner. Just make sure that technique and form come before speed and power. Notice how I try to employ all the different strikes and different combinations. If they flow for me, they will flow in the fight.
Well guys, that concludes this video lesson on the fundamental striking techniques. You learned how to base yourself in a proper fighting stance, how to traverse the battleground with agile footwork, and how to throw 3 basic strikes: the jab, the cross, and the lead hook. We also learned how to combine them into 3 basic combinations: the 1, 2, and 3. Stay tuned for future videos. Thanks for watching.